So if you have neurological symptoms and they tend to be worse first thing in the morning, things like headaches, nausea, double vision, lightheadedness, dizziness especially, uh, then I think this conversation is going to be useful for you. This is something that we talk about a lot in the clinic. So here's the spot where the caveat goes. This isn't medical advice. I'm going to share with you some things that we do here that help people that have neurological conditions, especially under a couple specific circumstances that help them be able to feel better first thing in the morning. So if you want to hear more, I'm Dr. Nathan Kaiser. Here we go. So in these cases, we're usually talking to people that have had some sort of either a neck related injury or have a genetic component of something that is different about their neck, where they're having worse symptoms in the morning. Why? So again, let's clarify who we're talking about. People that have had whiplash, falling out of trees, getting in, sports related concussions or whiplash, or smacking their head on something, falling backwards, hitting the ice, but also people that have hypermobility in their neck. They're just extra bendy and extra flexible. Maybe you've been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos or told you're hyperflexible, told you have cervical cranial instability. These kinds of problems, that's kind of encapsulating who we're talking about, because they tend to have symptoms that get worse in the morning. And they do that for three main reasons. Number one, because we affect blood flow coming into and going out of the head. With that, we kind of lump in cerebrospinal fluid being able to travel through the brain and into the spinal cord as well. We can see changes in the actual compression of nerves. These nerves can be peripheral nerves that come out of the neck and go into the arm and shoulder and chest and all these places, into your head. These are common when we see people that, like, they're always having to roll over at night because their arm's falling asleep, or they wake up with headaches in the morning. That's usually a pretty good sign, or ringing in their ears sometimes as well. And then, but also we see problems with compression of the actual cervical spinal cord itself. We know there's some research that shows that when we maximally rotate people that have a neck injury to do heart surgeries, that we can actually cause worse compression of the spinal cord as they lay there on their stomach on the operating table, and they wake up with problems relative to their blood pressure, with their heart rate, and some drop attacks, things like that. So that's talking about kind of the neurological component of it. Then we can even get compression of the vagus nerves on either side, and they have some component of the vagus nerve, 80% of it, takes information from the body to the brain. And there's another 20% or so that goes down to the heart and to the gut to help us control cardiac outputs, and then also our digestion. So pretty important stuff. And when we see symptoms that are relative to that, we want to make sure that we're not getting compression on the anterior part of the neck. Okay. And then the third thing is relative to our breathing. So even just the position of your head can mechanically obstruct your breathing. We call this obstructive sleep apnea, right? So people that have their palate drop, they snore, these sorts of things can be a problem. But we also know when we don't get appropriate feedback through these different neurological tissues, or if we're not getting blood flow transmitted as well to the head, then we can also have problems with central respiratory generators, and we get problems with the way we breathe at night. And these would be more like central sleep apneas. Cool. So with that said, we've got some research we could go through. We know that when we turn the head maximally this way, there's some evidence. It's controversial. Some people say yes, some people no, but there are some biases to that around the fact that when you measure blood flow through the posterior arteries, the vertebral arteries, that we can get occlusion of the arteries on the opposite side of the head turn, which is not great. So for somebody that we already know we've got some compromise in the neck, that could be previous injury, could be you got hypermobility, but it can even just be stiffness. Stiffness in the neck alone is going to cause a change or an augmentation of the cervical spine position as we move our head. So if I'm stiff, the joints move differently than if I'm feeling loose, okay? So even just having stiffness or compression on the anterior carotid sheath can cause these problems as well. But we actually can occlude, back to what I was talking about, we can actually occlude blood flow going into the head when we turn our head maximally. We can cause changes in the vertebral arteries when we lose the curve on our neck. So if we don't have an adequate curve, these could be people that have this severely kind of kyphotic neck where I'm sticking out like this, but it can also be people that are rigid and upright or sleep with their head, with their chin tucked all the way. You can hear my voice change. Like, these can also cause some occlusion or some decrease in the blood flow that comes into our brain. If we're looking to heal, we want all the blood flow there as much as possible. So what are things that we can do to actually start to get in front of this, prevent it, maybe even get a good night's sleep, maybe start to heal, maybe feel a little better in the morning, would be just purely changing the position that we sleep in. And I know we're killing sacred cows here because everybody has their own thing. They sleep the way they sleep. I totally get it. But if we're trying to maximize for healing, we're trying to maximize for neurological inputs and outputs of the brain and for blood flow into the brain, I think this is useful. So we want to try to sleep so that our neck is as close to a healthy neutral position as possible. The biggest detriment to that is when we really think about sleeping on our stomach. And some of you, it breaks your heart to hear this. I get it. But when I sleep on my stomach, my head's retracted and rotated. I'm on a pillow. So I get in this kind of odd position. Some of you will say, but I kind of sleep on my side where I kick my leg out and I kind of sleep like this. You're still, if you're finding your chin is toward your shoulder, then you're probably sleeping on your stomach. So we want to be able to modify that. And if we can do that, we want to think about having our head rotated so your chin is relatively over your sternum so that you're not stacking your pillows so high that your head's cocked over to the side and like this. We want to think about not flexing down into that fetal position so much and trying to keep our head neutral, okay? Easiest done by laying on your side or on your back with a pillow that doesn't hyperflex your chin so that I'm cutting off this kind of respiratory opening, but also not elongating my vertebral arteries. And then making sure, so like we have an adequate curve in the neck when we lay on our back. And then if you lay on your side and you notice that, when I lay on my side, I tend to then end up on my stomach again. You can also take a pillow and then just tuck it right under your side so that it's harder to roll over and your body can remember to kind of stay on your side with your legs stacked together. So it's simple cues. There's not a lot of magic to it. But what you may find is that if you have one of these injuries or you have hypermobility in your neck, or you're a person that's dealing with a syndrome where blood flow is compromised into your head, you may find that if you sleep on your stomach with your head cocked to the side or in these other positions we talked about, and you change to where you get your head in just a neutral position and let blood flow happen, let your nerves run, let your cord not be compressed, that sleep is actually a little bit better, maybe a little bit more restorative. Maybe you start dreaming again. Maybe you start waking up without as many symptoms. These would be huge wins. They don't cost any dollars and the risk is wildly low. Again, things we do in our practice: consult your physician, do it under medical supervision, but we're just sharing a thing that's worked for us. I hope it works for you. Talk soon.